Temporal boundaries, like the start of a new year, mark possibilities for people by way of an apparent transition to a new period of time. But they also give us a chance to start fresh and make changes to our daily routines. That's an important consideration because that fresh start perspective often has this idea that our future selves are going to be more capable of achieving challenging goals embedded into it. And that is rarely more appealing than as we approach these kinds of calendar landmarks, like the one that New Year's Eve presents. And since long-term goals have future rewards, it makes sense that we'd be more motivated and disciplined to work toward them at these times when we see an inflection point as broadly recognized as the calendar year changing. In fact, research has shown that people are far more likely to pursue their goals, like dieting or going to the gym or starting a new career, at the start of a new day, week, or month, let alone the turning of a calendar. But it's easy to lose that motivation once we've passed the temporal boundary and are faced with the challenges of actually reaching our goals. Temporality can assist us in overcoming inertia, but it doesn't always offer a sustainable means of staying in motion. That doesn't mean it's not worth considering, though. Leveraging temporality is a powerful mechanism for encouraging action. Ignoring it is to ignore an opportunity that only presents itself once per year. I have friends who think New Year's resolutions are useless. But I'm always surprised by how negative everyone seems to be about New Year's resolutions. How negatively the concept of New Year's resolutions gets framed in a macro sense. As in, a lot of all or nothing language gets used to describe New Year's resolutions. They never work. They always fail. And yet, that's not even remotely accurate. And I wish these types of people, especially the ones who are my friends, would just shut the hell up. Because all they're doing is undermining the efforts of people who see the new year as a launching point to becoming a better version of themselves. Instead, I see a whole lot of negative rhetoric about resolutions from people who are often struggling with their own failures to launch. And because New Year's resolutions didn't work for them at some point in their life, well, then they won't work for anyone, damn it. No, that's not how it works. Their failed n=1 experiment is not applicable to the rest of the population. But that doesn't stop them from posting a lengthy diatribe about New Year's resolutions being a waste of time and effort. They might think they're inspiring people to be better with these takes, but they're doing it at the expense of something that doesn't need to be taken down. Believe it or not, it's possible to inspire people to better themselves without attacking the mainstream strategies that help facilitate those outcomes. New year, new you isn't the worst thing in the world. Deriding the concept for some social media clout is pretty pathetic and more than a little self-righteous in my opinion. And that's coming from someone prone to self-righteousness. But these all or nothing statements really do piss me off when I see them. Especially given that New Year's resolutions are far from being the complete failure that these people often try to portray them as.
Am I so out of touch?
New Year's resolutions are an excellent means of setting a person on a path to self-improvement. I've been using them my entire adult life. So from my perspective, New Year's resolutions are effective. I don't want to do the same thing the critics of New Year's resolutions do, but in the positive. As in, my n=1 experiment succeeded, so everyone should make New Year's resolutions. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, let's not be so dismissive of something that sometimes succeeds and sometimes fails. We should be encouraging people to try more often than simply stating, no, that doesn't work for most people, so you shouldn't even bother. Failing is rarely the problem. Not even trying often is. Psychics aren't real and humans are terrible at predicting the future. And that includes your friend on social media who thinks New Year's resolutions are lame. They can't see the future. they can't predict who will succeed or fail at following through with a New Year's resolution. And they certainly can't state with any validity that New Year's resolutions don't work, because they do. And there's data to support my argument. According to a study from 2016, 41% of Americans make New Year's resolutions. Of those, 9% feel that they were successful in achieving their goals by the end of the year. And this may seem like a low success rate, but it's important to note that 100% of that 9% succeeded. If 9 people out of 100 managed to achieve a healthier lifestyle or some type of life goal, why would we ignore that? It's a statistically significant finding that's not easily replicated with other strategies. Or worse, no strategy at all. An earlier study from 2007 showed that 12% of people who set resolutions are successful. And that's even when only 52% of the participants from that study went into a resolution confident of success at the beginning. This shows that the act of setting a resolution can be a powerful motivator even if we don't feel completely confident in our ability to achieve it. When we look at success rates over the first 6 months of a New Year's resolution, we see that 75% of those who make one are still successful after 1 week. That number drops slightly to 71% after 2 weeks and 64% after 1 month. After 6 months, 46% of people who made a resolution are still successful in achieving it. In comparison, of those people who have similar goals but don't set a resolution, only 4% are still successful after 6 months. Some people may fail to achieve their New Year's resolutions, but it's usually due to unrealistic goals or a lack of progress tracking. But these issues can be addressed by setting realistic goals and consistently checking in on our progress. By making a resolution and committing to it, we can increase our chances of success and make meaningful differences in our lives. One of my friends out and out dismissed New Year's resolutions because the success rate implies a failure rate that in his mind was unacceptable. He's not wrong in that failure is an ever-present potential outcome. But to dismiss the successes completely seems carelessly dismissive, especially if you're working as a coach or a trainer. There are better ways to be a role model than raging against New Year's resolutions in unnecessarily belittling social media posts. I'm offering a counterpoint to that carelessness because I think New Year's resolutions are worthy of consideration based on the success rates that some people do have with them. When I asked him to clarify that point, as in being willing to dismiss the success rates in eliciting positive behavior changes in sample populations, he said he didn't support them. So let me get this straight. You're willing to ignore New Year's resolutions because they're not 100% effective? His reply, for long-term success, yes. I had no answer for that. Well, no answer that made sense for a social media debate. I definitely have an answer to that comment, as evidenced by this video. What he said stayed with me though. Not so much because it was his opinion, but because it's such a commonly held opinion. And in holding that opinion, my friend and others like him are willing to dismiss the aforementioned success rates to continue peddling this belief. But all I can think is 100% of that percentage succeeded.
60% of the time, it works every time.
And you're willing to ignore the value in that to maintain that New Year's resolutions are useless. That seems, well, myopic to me. The question that immediately came to mind was, well, what's the threshold for utility? And that question still looms for me. If that percentage isn't good enough, what is? 50%? 75%? What number gets a pass? Because there isn't a single behavior change technique in any of the literature that is 100%. Not one. And of all the available behavior change techniques studied and documented, the highest one I could find demonstrated a success rate of 80%, while most fell between 10% and 70%. New Year's resolutions fall somewhere in the middle or toward the bottom end, depending on your reference materials. So to dismiss them as a means of stimulating positive behavior changes just seems negligent. Worse than that, though, it's disempowering, because many of my friends are willing to say that New Year's resolutions are useless, and they are often trainers, coaches, or athletes. And that makes them role models and mentors to a lot of people. Some of those people might think that a New Year's resolution is a good approach to becoming a better person. They'd be right too. The science backs them on that assumption. But then they go on social media and see that some of the people they look up to for guidance are calling New Year's resolutions pointless exercises and futility. There goes that person's aspirational intentions. People don't react well to feeling like the plan they set out to follow is futile. Having someone they respect undermine the whole idea with negative framing and derisive language will just make the person who thought they were on the right track feel dumb. And they're just as likely to give up completely as they are to ask for clarification or guidance. All because someone decided that New Year's resolutions don't work without deeply and respectfully considering an alternative view supported by statistical analysis.
It's science.
That lack of empathy and conscientiousness is problematic at a minimum, and I take issue with it. I'm choosing my words carefully here. This is meant to be a measured response. Keep that in mind as I say what I'm about to say. It's not meant to be disrespectful or hurtful, but my experience with coaches, trainers, athletes, and leaders that disparage New Year's resolutions as being useless are mostly doing so from a place of their own personal failings and insecurities. And they often just repeat the idea that New Year's resolutions don't work because they're trying to sound like they've got it all figured out and promote an image of being hardcore without the need for resolutions.
I don't need it.
That's a pretty juvenile slant to take on something like behavior change, though. It's not informed by reality outside of a narrow scope of identity building and ego stroking. And I'm not saying that's what my friends are guilty of when they express these opinions about New Year's resolutions, but I'm also not saying that's what they're all guilty of when they do. From my standpoint, New Year's resolutions work. They have for me, they have for my clients and customers. Wayne Gretzky is credited with saying, "You miss 100% of the shots you don't take." And that's where I'm coming from here. Make a resolution.
I need it!
You never know if you don't try. And not making one has a failure rate of 100%. So when someone says New Year's resolutions don't work, what I hear is that New Year's resolutions didn't work for them. I can accept that, even if that's not what they're specifically saying in plain language. That's the identity they want you to see when they make broad, sweeping statements like that. Regardless, that's not what I'm hearing.
What?
I'm hearing, this doesn't work for me, so I don't want it to work for anyone. Best way to accomplish that is to convince people not to do it.
I only hear what I want to.
The opposite isn't true, though. They can't explain people like me using a framework based on successful New Year's resolutions. They have a faulty premise that informs an errant belief that New Year's resolutions don't work. Spoiler alert, they do. For 100% of whatever percentage succeeds from whatever study you want to cite. There is not a single study on New Year's resolutions that cites a 0% success rate. Not one.
I've done the math. Checks out.
There is always some measure of success with New Year's resolutions. Dismissing all of that is just dumb.
Okay, a simple wrong would have done just fine, but...
And it ignores all the traits that are worthy of praise and emulation that successful resolutioners possess. Successful resolution makers tend to have several key characteristics in common that anyone can internalize. They set specific and achievable goals. They have a plan in place for how to achieve them. They seek support from friends and family or a professional coach. They maintain a positive mindset, and they are persistent in the face of challenges or setbacks. What they don't do is dismiss behavior change strategies that are successful for many people, myself included, because they don't work for them specifically.
I'm not listening to you. You're crazy.
And that comes almost entirely from their own failures. Choosing to be anti-resolutions is a short-sighted view of the power that a defined resolution and the process that facilitates it can have in a person's life. Of all the choices a person can make, why make a negative one like that? Be a positive influence in people's lives by getting on side when it comes to behavior change and New Year's resolutions. Give those people the chance you apparently don't give yourself. If they fail knowing they tried. But if they succeed, they'll succeed without having to reassess their relationship with you, because that's always a weird place to end up when you succeed at something others said wouldn't work.
We are no longer friends.
I'm reminded of the quote that states, "People who say it cannot be done should not interrupt those who are doing it." When you see me or anyone else posting about our New Year's resolutions, just keep quiet.
Quiet. Shut up! Quiet!
Who knows? We might inspire you to make one next year with the successes we have this year.